why I feel in the face of all the problems in the world impotent, and why I somehow cannot manage to transform I. Now here we get to the real problem, because we're always telling each other that we should be different. Now I'm not going to tell you that tonight. Why not? Because I know you can't. Nor can I. That may sound depressing, but I'll tell you it isn't. It's very hard. But everybody, you see, who is at all sensitive and awake to their own problems and human problems is trying to change himself. We know we can't change the world unless we change ourselves. So when we are aware of the ego I, we are aware of this chronic tension inside ourselves. And that's not us. It's a futile tension. So when we get the illusion, the image of ourselves, married to a futile tension, you've got an illusion married to a futility. And then you wonder why I can't do anything.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. We have to look over this chart with the utmost scrutiny. With no further ado, let me record this video screen. Somebody drop the link for this live stream in the general chat, would you? Just Trading General. If you could do that for me, that'd be sweet. Actually, I can do it. Paste. Watch. Okay. So, I'm going to start. I was just, okay. So, a few important notes today. Mostly have to do with volatility overhead and compressing periods, okay? Because compressing volatility overhead can, quite accurately, define compression. Okay, so if we take a look at the longest period of overhead mass, it is currently the 200 period, and that's quite convenient because by default I have the 200 period set to my chart layout. So with this in mind, well, it simply implies that price will not expand outside beyond this pivot right here, right? It's gonna do a nice little squeeze there, and eventually, sure, I'll bet on bullish scenarios if we do manage to get on top of it. But until then, compressing volatility overhead is very good at smacking down new trend, right? Actually, the reason why this new period of expansion was so surprising for me was actually because of the generations of mass that occurred regardless of volatility overhead. So the most recent example, the signal actually failed. However, in prior examples, it's been rather solid. And the reason for this is if you have something with a significant amount of mass, it can still be moved with an unrealistic amount of force. Institutional investors are like Hercules. They can come in and move things people think can't be moved. Why? Well, because they simply have the force to do so. Right? So here we had this nice little plume generation of mass. Typically, new mass would not be generated until this plume here compressed. But you'll notice that this new red plume actually overrid the previous one, and it gets all funky, and we keep expanding, and then it's just completely ignored with this huge green candle. So, with that in mind, we can take a look at previous instances, and they're actually very consistent, where we have the expansion, and then nothing new is willing to expand over those periods. So each time volatility overhead occurs, you'll notice that each subsequent plumes don't really make it up above, right? Because it would require an unrealistic amount of force to do so. So here, this is actually a pretty cool instance, where we have the volatility overhead here, and you'll actually notice the expansion stops right where the volatility overhead would form, and it actually just incorporates into the plume. And it was a pretty cool move because they were actually counter direction. And the way this would actually look like is, say, the volatility over here was like the 70 period. The 70 period Bollinger Band would actually be right here, where it's hard to re-expand the band because there's the volatility overhead from the previous instance. And this is another great example where we have the expansion here, and then this plume. You'll notice how all the lights up just up until where there was the previous volatility overhead throughout here, right, where that expansion can't extend beyond the previous generation of mass. And this is going to be really cool. So if I actually take this period right here, the 163 period, or the 160, excuse me, right, the volatility overhead from this move here caused this expansion to stop short of the bottom edge of that pivot. So if I load up the 160 band, you're going to see something really cool. Alright, so price actually has a really difficult time re-expanding those longer overexpanded periods. And even more accurately, you would use the 250 band as well. You would want to use both to define the target range. So we can load up 250, see how that plays out. And I'm assuming the top edge of the previous expansion will be a bit more accurate. No, not at all. Huh. Fascinating. Well, actually, it doesn't happen on the initial move, so that's pretty cool. So the 160 expansion stalls price, and then you get the lateral move, but eventually, lateral trading as defined by the longest previous expansion, 160, it does define those values eventually. Anyway, the point is, we're still expecting that same compressing range because of the values we've gotten here. Especially because the longest overexpanded period, as defined by, say, the 4 hours, still hasn't been entered. Right? I believe here it's 250, if I recall correctly. Let's wait for it to load. Come on, buddy. Here it is. Right, so actually it's expanded all the way up to the 300. So we're going to take a look at that. Okay, so what's cool about this, and we can actually get a pretty clear picture, we will define trend by the 300 band down here, and we will define compression by the bottom edge of the plume, so that's around 50 to 40. So this 50 band is actually coming down to compress on price, so we aren't going to expect that much lateral trading here. And for trendy, I'm actually kind of bearish after looking at this. Expecting retrace values to the trend pivot before trend continuation would be a very reasonable scenario, especially considering we're expecting the smackdown of volatility overhead, right? Because any new expansion is going to have a hard time getting above these periods. Now let's see if we can find any examples where that might be true. And this is actually even better perspective of the previous one, where we have this expansion here, but the new one plows right through it because of that excessive force. However, say in previous examples, where we have this plume, you'll notice that this new plume has a failure to connect because of the smackdown from the volatility overhead. And you can get a lot of examples of these. They're a bit rare on 4 hour because of how market cycles are much more cyclical up here. So we have the plume here, and then you'll notice re-expansion can't work its way up above the previous periods. Or we have this trend here, and then re-expansion can't work itself up above the previous periods, and so on. So really, that's why lateral trading is the safest bet right now, where we would just expect sideways trading, because we would expect this volatility overhead to smack down any kind of new expansion, right? It actually allows for a lot more downside as well. It's actually pretty cool. Oh, this is really cool. So the bottom edge of the 50 band, if we were to go below it, it would actually cause expansion up above the 60 period. And as we just said, that's improbable because of the required amount of force. And then what's interesting is that it's actually currently the same pivot as the longest overexpanded period. So we could reasonably expect that this pivot right here, combined with this pivot right here, would be very likely in providing support for Bitcoin if, say, we were to retrace. And it's important to note that the 1,000 or 1,730 band is currently our longest term mean reversion target from the initial rundown. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Right, so this plume right here, if you actually look at it on a higher resolution, actually goes up to 1730. So this downward move entered a period of consolidation, and when it re-entered this band, it was implied that eventually it would return to this 1730 mean. And just the fact that it's bouncing directly on that pivot is honestly uncanny. Just the accuracy of how it's respecting it. And then let's do a bit of quick math. 1 second. We want to find out what 50 times 6 times 7 is. 2,100 is going to be the weekly 50 moving average on the 4-hour chart. So we're going to change our blue band to 2,100, okay? Just so we can get those macro level pivots on the lower time frames. Beautiful. So, nice. This is a pretty cool perspective. So we expect this to be our short-term rejection point, and probably we'll go down and test those pivots we mentioned on the 1-hour chart, and then I believe it would be more likely for us to run up, test the weekly 50 moving average, which is right here, and then we're going to have the creek, the slow trickle down back to previous support levels. And during this slow period, we're going to see a reduction of selling, very low volume throughout this entire area, as we retest the weekly 200 moving average, which I suppose we can get up here as well, which essentially should just be 21,000 times 4, so that should be 8,400, if my math is correct. Okay, so 8,400 moving average is going to be the weekly 200 down here, except I can't view it on this ticker. I just need to go to a standard Bitcoin chart. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, we're just going to look at the indicators for a second. Beautiful. So, these are all our macro level pivots as defined by the 4-hour chart, which is pretty attractive. This is where we initially called the market bottom on December 16th, after we started to see that bounce on the weekly 200. I had a secondary leveraged long position opened right here at $3,300 at this location. my fill order missed by $15. And if that actually had filled, I would be up about 250% right now. So that's pretty frustrating, because it was a really small portfolio, and I had just pretty much bet the entire thing it would bounce from there. So it's pretty sad. 2.5x my portfolio. I could have used that. That would have been a lot of advertising revenue. Okay, so really, my next plan is to short from this value here. So once we run up and test this, I'm going to short back to the weekly 200, and then from the weekly 200, I'm going to open up a long-term leveraged futures contract right on top of the weekly 200 moving average. And I'm just going to let that baby run, right? Because let's talk about the weekly chart. Let's change this value to 200. Okay. And oh my god, it's gonna look pretty funny here for a second. If you switch these indicators to logarithmic, because we get negative values on our distributions because of their normalized shape, logarithmic gets really screwy. So we actually have to zoom super far in here. And it gets all droopy. It's like the melting clock pictures, to be honest. Okay. Goodness gracious. We should have bought at $2, eh? Anyway. What did I do? I just leave my indicator? Oh, that's fine. Anyway. We expect several secondary retests of the weekly 200. And we're getting the exact same several secondary retests of the weekly 200. So we're just going to bounce off that value sideways before trend continuation. Really, I don't expect the next bull run to start until early 2020, but we are going to have a lot of scalping opportunities through this short range. So I'm excited for this, guys. You should be too. I am currently tethered out. I don't feel like longing to the weekly 50 is particularly safe. So my trading right now is pretty boring because I'm only trading with like a third of my portfolio. So we're just going to have to buckle up and wait. All right, folks, all you TradingView people, I hope this was useful. I'll talk to you later. Nice, guys. So there's so. That's German. I don't know what it means. It's one of the songs I like. So there's so. Okay, let's check the YouTube comments. General Electric. Goddamn cat. Okay. GE. I guess you want me to look at this bear flag? Bull flag? I guess it's a bear flag. I want to see if this bounced off the exactly like the weekly 3.2. Watch this. Oh my god. Not quite. It just barely missed it. They're really using that as a signal anywhere else in the downtrend would have been pretty bad. Anyway. Let's define the locks. I guess we should first know, because actually this volatility overhead's already evaporated, so we shouldn't even consider this downward move here. That compressed really fast. Because this is actually all green and ready for trending on the daily. Let's try the 3-day. Because I know this mass generation still exists. I just want to figure out how high it goes. 5-day? So I want to get a good resolution. Jesus. Yeah, this is a huge amount of mass, isn't it? Once that mean reversion begins, it's above the weekly cat. Oh my god, what are you doing to me? I'm gonna do like 2 weeks. Because I don't want to go on too high of a resolution. Oh my god, Jesus. We're actually gonna have to do the monthly chart. Cat, are you screwing with me? I can't use like any of these readings. Not like a single one of these downtrends is usable information, at least as far as 3D wave PM goes. Okay, we need to identify a different way to get along. What do you recommend, Kat? I want to hear your opinion on this, because like my go-to way of identifying trend is shot, because actually identifying the swing low of this is going to be really hard, because this is catching a falling knife if we can't identify the right pivots. I guess short term here on the 4-hour chart, we can predict new downward net expansion, right? Because that's a very bearish candle close, especially with this breakout on the 3-day wave PM. Short-term bearish, we're probably going to retest lows. I'm going to be honest. That's my prediction for now. It's a cool chart, though. I just can't read it on any of the macro levels, and then the micro level is bearish. AMD, my favorite normie pair. Like, if I was a retail investor, this would be the pair that I traded. Like, you can actually see some of my old trades here. It's just like quad CCI entries that worked out really well for me. Because I actually traded this chart. So I did 2 trades. I entered along here, and I took profit up here, and then I had a secondary fill up here, and then I took profit on the 3.2 standard deviation tag. I should have just used a trailing stop, obviously, but it happens. And the reason why AMD is such a nice normie chart is because it's completely unmanipulated, at least visually, and you still get some. Actually, I'm going to make a pretty cool point. Do you know what people in stocks would consider manipulation? Like, stock people are so spoiled. So spoiled. You know why? Because they consider this manipulation, where you get a candle close outside of a trend line, and then it goes back inside the channel. Right? They consider that manipulation. Okay? Do you know what a crypto person would consider manipulation? There being a channel at all. If there was a channel, they would consider it manipulation. Right? Oh my god, it would be so nice just to be able to trade normal comfy trends and normal comfy channels with clear defined trending breakouts and clear to the numbers Wyckoff accumulation zones, complete with its own little spring and secondary test, like phase A, B, and C. It's all perfectly there. Like, really should get back to trading this. It's just so comfy. Anyway, current prediction. I mean, you could just do a quad CCI entry. I mean, you have a new trend. You have all the waiting. Just wait for a 14-period CCI roll up. It should treat you fine. Like, this is such a simple chart. Quad CCI is going to treat you really well. Okay? Wait for the CCI roll up. Hope for trend continuation. That's my best bet. Can I take a look at Nano? Yeah, I can. And then also, guys, just to let you know, we're going to do a bit of a brand shift to, we're also going to sell jars of protein. Gonna be a multi-gains company. We want to make sure you get financial gains and physical gains. We're also going to do workout courses right after the TA courses, okay? And then I'm going to start taking steroids. Are you guys familiar with the coin Fit Vitalik? It's like a $50,000 micro cap ICO. And they pretty much just photoshopped Vitalik to be buff. And then I thought that was some really good branding, so now I'm just going to go that route and work out till I can't fit through doorways, and that'll be the golden ticket, right? To be the swole crypto guy. There's too many crypto skeletons, guys. Come on, we gotta get big. Okay, Nano, we're touching the 3.2 standard deviation, so that's not good for entry. If you want to assume parabolic moves, quad CCI is going to be your friend. You're going to wait for the retrace. You're going to pray that it doesn't cross any mean reversion pivots on the 3D wave PM, and then you're just going to use quad CCI to scoop up the entry with the 14-period CCI roll. Yep, it's a clean chart. It's easy. I recommend it. Doge is going to explode soon. Correct. explode with cuteness. I missed the Doge race car. That's funny. I like Doge. Who doesn't like Doge? Sure. If you just want to assume fractal patterns, you could do this. Yeah, we could assume that it's going to explode soon. When you want a 2x, go for it. We just have this really big painted flag, right? If you just want to try to buy at the bottom of it and sell at the top of it, that's my ATA. That's all I got for you, man. Cat's going off about General Electric. I should probably revisit it, because got to impress him. Gap down almost 10% today after an analyst downgraded and suggested targets halfway down. I've seen other good TA try to claim this is a good speculative long. Seemed like an interesting chart to make sense of. Short term's bearish. I will agree with that. But I'm really against knife catching, and if I want to see trend, I'm just going to wait for the trend to begin and then use quad CCI. Right, if you have a super speculative range and you have short-term bearish signals, I'm going to wait till the uptrend and then enter the uptrend, right? There's no reason to subject yourself to additional risk. I'm Xerxes has FUSD CCI rolled up. Hey, man! I got some pretty weird feelings about FUSD. There's no doubt about it. This is the Ethereum market bottom. Let me just put some perspective here for you guys. If you bought the bottom up to here, that's almost 100% gain, okay? In that tight little range. If we retest previous highs, you're looking at 10x. So from this super duper macro perspective, you should wait for retracement values before entering a long, and then when you enter the long, just hold it. Stay in the trade. Stay in the trade. My God, stay in the trade for a long, 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 long time. All right, we actually have like the most bullish signal. Okay, you know what this is? This is the wave PM cross on the daily. Well, you have every value below 0.4, and every period is expanding at the same time. It's just ridiculous. You know what the last time we got the signal was? It was on VIB. Like last time I got the signal was on VIB, and VIB ran. Let me point it out here, guys. Right there. That was the same signal. So right there. And then VIB jumped over 100%. I actually sold around here, but it actually ran up over 150. Okay, it's absolutely ridiculous. I kind of wish I could find re-entry into it. But that's the game. Yeah, I've got some pretty bullish expectations on Ethereum. Long-term bullish though, guys. We're gonna see a short-term retrace, and it's gonna be pretty deep, I'll be honest. And you'd have to throw risk management out the window if you want to enter a long-term position for it. Still uploading. God damn. Super volatile coin though. It was fun to trade for a bit. Because we actually got the bottom where it was all nice and tight because of that wave PM cross. But mixed feelings about this market right now, guys. I'll be honest. All right, no new comments. I'm gonna call it for today. I gotta get some lunch. It has been a pleasure. Like and subscribe, guys. It means the world to me. With no further ado, we'll see y'all later. Oh, you want to see this? I worked really hard on this. Put a lot of effort into it. Also, this brush is really good. You know, if you have preserve layer transparency and I just go to yellow, it's such a nice brush. I left my tablet off today because it was a bit of a hassle to get. But it is bueno if you ask me. Okay? All right, folks, I'll see y'all later. Have a beautiful day.